Okay, so today we're going to do operations on scientific notation. And so as you can see, for my first operation, we're going to multiply this and this. And so here's my recommendation for all these things. Just like everything else in this chapter, I would, since the sign in between everything is multiplication, I would organize like things. So here's what's alike to me. These numbers are alike, and tens to different powers are alike. So we're just going to reorganize this. So we'll have 3 times 3 times 10 to the 5th times 10 to the negative 3rd. Now we're just going to actually just evaluate these things on their own. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. And then this, on its own, would be 10 to the 5th and 10 to the negative 3rd. When we multiply exponents, it acts like adding, so I would have a total of 2 tens. And when I look at that, that thing is now in scientific notation, and we are good. Let's try another example. So we have another multiplication example. And again, I want to multiply this from scientific notation in this. So let's combine the like things, which are the numbers. So let's do 4 times 5. And then let's combine the tens. So that would be 10 to the 3rd times 10 to the 8th. And when I do 4 times 2, I'm going to get 20. And when I do my 10 to the 3rd times 10 to the 8th, I'm going to get 10 to the 11th. Now, here's the issue a lot of students will do. They will leave this as their final answer. And that is not good, because this is not in scientific notation. It's not it, because this is bad. That 20 is not where we want it to be. So we're going to actually do what we did yesterday. And we're going to change 20 into scientific notation. Well, the decimal point is behind the 0, so I would need to move it 1 space over. Because that was a big number, or 20 is greater than 1, I would say that this thing is a positive. Now we're going to bring this down here. So I'd have 2.0 times 10 to the 1st times 10 to the 11th. Well, that would be 2.0 times 10 to the 12th. And that would be my final answer. Let's try one more multiplication example. Okay, so again for this one, what I really want to do is I want to multiply these two things. So this and this. And what, again, we'll combine our numbers. So this number and this number. And that would give me 5.25 times 4.3. We'll combine our tens. Well, 10 to the 7th times 10 to the negative 9th. It's going to act like adding again, so I'll get 10 to the negative 2nd. Now we have to do this. I am not very good at doing that off the top of my head. So I'm going to bring up my calculator. And I get this big number. Pull that up again. 575. There we go. Here's the issue with that. Again, this thing over here is not in scientific notation. So we need to fix that. Which means I would have to write as 2.2575. Move that spot 1 place over. Again, because this number, this thing, the 22 is greater or a bigger number, when I move it 1 space over, that should be a positive 1. Then we'll combine the two things. again, so I'll combine this with the other 10 that I already had, and I will get 2.2575 times 10 to the negative first. That would be my final answer. Let's do a division problem. Division problems are normally a little bit nicer because they actually have the things already stacked. So we're going to just worry about this number together and these 10s together. Well, when we divide exponents, dividing exponents act like subtraction. So I'm going to do 3 minus a negative 3. So I'm going to get 10 to the positive 6. Then we're going to divide 8 and 5. Again, is a little bit harder to do off the top of my head. And that gives us 1.6. So this would be my final answer. Let's try another example. Okay, so again in this example, treat the numbers separate than the 10s. So 10 to the third divided by 10 to the 7th. Well, division again acts like subtraction, so I'll get 10 to the negative 4th. Now we'll do 2.34 divided by 5. That's going to give me 0.468. Again, red flag should go off in our head because this is not in scientific notation, so let's change it into scientific notation. So I would need to move the decimal one place over, so 4.68 times 10 to the negative first, because this number right here was less than 1, so it's a small number. And then I'll have 10 to the negative first and 10 to the negative 4th. Well, that will give me 10 to the negative 5th. And that would be my final answer there again. This stuff, if you're having trouble remembering how to decide if it's positive or negative, remember negative exponents mean to divide. Division generally gives us these smaller numbers. If it's a positive exponent, then it means to multiply. That generally gives us bigger numbers. So just please keep that in mind as we go through this whole stuff because it'll make it a little bit easier. We just have to do one more type of example, which will be the power rule. Let's say I'm actually raising this thing to the 4th power. Well, if you remember the power rule, what we did with this is we kind of distributed this to each of the exponents. Now this doesn't have an exponent, so we're going to give it a makeshift one. So I'll have 5.3 to the 4th power times 10 to the 12th power. Because 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 1 is just 4. Oh, let's do 5.3 to the 5th power or 4th power. So we'll go 5.3 times 5.3 times 5.3 times 5.3. And we get this number, which is not a very nice number, but that's still okay. So that would be 789.0481. Again, major red flag should be going up for this number right there, because that number is definitely not in scientific notation. So let's change it into scientific notation. I need to move this decimal point 2 spaces. And then we'll fill in all the other numbers. And since that number was a larger number, it would be positive. And then we'll combine those tens and get, well, since it's multiplication, it will act like addition. So I'll have 10 to the 14th. And that would be my final answer. Every single scientific notation problem is going to kind of follow these different steps. The first step it will follow is you'll perform the operation by splitting apart the numbers and variables. After you've done that, you're just going to decide whether the number that you got, which in this case was purple for us, if it's in scientific notation. If it's not, then you change it into scientific notation, which we got in this step right here. And your last step then will be to combine the two different tens. Try these problems today. If you get stuck, please let me know.